I want you to meet James. Now, James has bought several businesses in the funeral care sector, and he did it in a very clever way. He did it without spending a penny of his own money. On this video, you're going to find out exactly how he did it. If you're serious about buying a business, then take my brand new, completely free training course. There's a link somewhere up here in the corner of the video. Click the link, take the course, and you could be buying a business in the next 100 days. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, tap the notifications bell, and you will receive a notification the next time I release a new video. Hi, James. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
So let me ask you some questions, but start with because I talked about different sectors. So, James, you are in a different sector to manufacturing, hardware, trucks and transport. What is your sector?
So I'm in the funeral profession, as we like to call it, or funeral industry. And there's a long story there, but I can keep it kind of short, if you like. I'd like a show of hands, actually. My first job that I had as a child, I was 12 years old. Anybody else started work around 12 years old? And it's interesting, in a room like this, lots of hands go up. In another normal business networking room, you wouldn't get that many hands up. So my first job was working in a pub on a Saturday and Sunday morning, just bottling up the back bar from the night before. My next job, I got paid £3 an hour and an Orangina that we spoke about last night on my table. That was not £3 an hour, £3 for the whole morning session. So my next job I went to when I was 14 was washing cars. Now these cars were a bit bigger, so I got £10 per car. And that's because one of the cars was a hearse and one was a limousine. And I was 14 years old when I started working for our local funeral director. And I don't know whether we want to go full circle just yet.
Okay, so your introduction to this sector that probably would not be the one that most people would think of. You know, if you're thinking, what type of business do I buy, that would probably not have been on the radar. But there was always a connection for you, wasn't there? So maybe it wasn't as unusual as other people might have think it would be.
Yeah, and for me there was a connection. So I stayed on working, 14 and then onwards as well. Finished off my GCSEs, went to college, and I did a business course in college. I always knew I wanted to be in business, but I didn't quite know what business I wanted to be in at that time. And it's a bit like finding out what sectors we might want to go into. So I tried lots of different things. But still kept in contact with that local funeral director. I wasn't washing the cars on the Saturday anymore. I was doing other things by then, but still kept in contact with them. And college led to university. I'm not very clever, which you'll find out within the next few minutes. But I went to university anyway, managed to get in to the University of Hertfordshire, which isn't far away from where we are now. And quite quickly realised that it wasn't for me. I was doing a business economics degree, and it just wasn't right for me. And at that time, you could quite easily predict what your salary would be when you became a graduate in 3 years and went into the workplace. So I set myself, one of my first goals was to be earning at least, if not more, than a graduate would have been in 3 years' time, but I would have had 3 years' worth of work experience, which they wouldn't have had. So I went back to my friend and funeral director and contacted him and said, could I come and work for you full-time and learn the profession? So that's what I did around 19 years old, I guess. I would have been around that time.
So you dropped out of university after how long?
Just the term, end of the first term, pretty much.
I don't know. I don't think we've talked. I did as well.
Did you really?
So I was doing a French degree. Yeah. Discovered I wasn't very good at French. Had no talent for languages at all. Don't know how I ended up doing a French degree. And I dropped out after that first term, Easter. Yeah.
Just as a side note, and only because I was there on Thursday last week. One of my other goals, and we can maybe talk about goals a lot, I'm very passionate about goal setting, but one of my other goals was I want to give back. So I contacted my secondary school that I went to and my university and my college that I went to, and I've spoken at all of those, and now I'm a visiting lecturer for the University of Hertfordshire, teaching their MBA students about business, entrepreneurship, digital marketing, and things like that.
Oh, that's very nice. And I saw on LinkedIn that you were speaking at, was it last week before?
Just last Thursday, yeah.
Last Thursday. Yeah. And I think you said that was your post that had got the most traction ever on LinkedIn.
It was fascinating, you know, and what I think was really funny about it, I was at my old university on a campus that wasn't even built when I went there, and now they've got a Starbucks for the students. Very different than my day.
Yeah.
But what was funny was the comments, I tagged University of Hertfordshire in there, the comments from other previous students was about, is this pub still there? I remember buying this drink for £1 and so on and so forth. So I think that's maybe where a lot of the interaction came from.
So let's fast forward a few years. You were in business with your brother.
Yep.
And that was, what type of business was that?
So that was manufacturing, plastic moulding, manufacturing for industry. And I was just saying, Danny, behind your back to a guy over here, I might be able to come and run some of the machines that maybe you can't within some of your businesses. So we set up our own business. He was working for an American company that had a UK presence, and he saw a niche in the market, or a niche in the market if you're American, and for small to medium volumes. Every day they'll be selling high volumes of these products because they manufactured them. A long story cut short, we ended up being kind of their distributor to start with, so we would buy these high volumes from them and then break them down, buy 5,000 pieces, sell 1,000 here, 1,000 there, keep the rest on the shelf. Alison, it wouldn't be very good for your stock levels, sorry. And a business formed from that. We were so successful that we grew and grew and grew. The first day of that business, I was in my brother's house on his wife, my sister-in-law's dressing table, on a laptop with a fax machine, and there's another girl with a fax machine, isn't there? Which we'll get onto.
Yeah.
That was my first day. We went into another farm building shortly after that. It was a Nissan hut, corrugated Nissan hut, for some of you that might know what that is. It didn't have any running water inside unless it rained, and then the water came straight through the middle. We bought ourselves a very nice garden shed from the local garden centre. We lined it out, we put carpet in it, we put 2 desks in it, and that was our office inside this Nissan hut.
I'm interrupting your video with a very important message. If you are watching a video like this, it's probably because you're serious about buying a business. But watching free videos on YouTube will only take you so far. You need to take the next step. And the next step is a link that's somewhere on the screen up at the top, which takes you through to our free video training. There's no cost whatsoever. You watch the free video training and that will give you some of the essential basics that you need. Now, if you get value from that, then I would invite you to be part of my next Fast Track program. Now, the Fast Track program has been running for a couple of years now. We've had nearly 3,000 people around the world on the Fast Track program, and it's a Zoom program that you can attend from anywhere. It's broadcast from my living room to your living room, where I will teach you what you need to know to go and buy your first business. And there's a Q&A section at the end of each of the training sessions, so you can ask me all of your questions. Now, if you get great value from that and you're really serious about buying a business, then there's my mastermind program, a 12-month program where we hold your hand through the business buying process so that you can buy your first company. And when you have, I'll invite you into our inner circle, which is exclusively for people who've bought their first business. So that's what we've got lined up for you. It's up to you whether you take the next step. Anyway, back to the video.
And we grew and grew from there. I tell you these stories because we ended up moving to an industrial unit and outgrowing every sort of time. And we had lots of interest from America for the parts that we would be supplying. We were one of the first e-commerce type businesses for that industry, and we were getting sample requests from America. And what we decided was it wasn't quite having the closing rate that we wanted because it was taking a long time just with the normal post system, our post and the USPS. So we contacted someone in America that we knew, which was my wife's aunt, English lady, married an American. She just relocated to St. Charles, which is just outside St. Louis in Missouri, with her husband. And we said, I know you haven't got work yet because you're looking for it. Would you mind if we sent you a batch of samples once a week? Could you then get them through your system quicker? Long story cut short, she became our first time full employee in America. We grew that business. And the company my brother had originally worked for is also in St. Louis, is their headquarters in St. Louis. We popped up in their backyard, as they would say, and became a little bit of a thorn in their side in a nice way. And they ended up acquiring us, lock, stock and barrel, both in the US and here. Myself and my brother stayed on in the business, and I ended up being managing director of that business for 3 years, which ended just over a year ago.
Okay, wonderful. So, acquisitions.
Yeah.
When did that enter your vision, your universe?
So having had our own business with my brother and then working for another company, another person, they're a fantastic company, love them, brilliant, but it wasn't my business anymore. So I was thinking, I had a midlife crisis, I'd just turned 40, I didn't want to buy a fast car or do anything like that, so I was thinking, what do I do? Do I do another 25 years of this, get a lovely pension, gold watch, and retire, or do I have another go at this? And I didn't want to start another business because it's really difficult to start a business. So I was looking around. I think that's when I discovered you, read your books, listened to podcasts. You know, again, like a lot of you here, I'm a big fan of this process, the Dealmakers Academy, of yourself. Been fortunate enough to be on the podcast a couple of times now as well, and now here speaking to you on this stage. So very much like a lot of you, was consuming a lot of the free content, and was really fortunate. 31st of August 2019, I was fortunate to win a LinkedIn competition. If you're not on LinkedIn, this is one good reason why you should be on LinkedIn, to fly on a private jet with Jonathan. This is the only way he travels, to Amsterdam and back in a day, and had a fantastic time with you and 3 other guys, which are all linked with other Inner Circle or as well. So.
Two of the other 3 are in a circle group, now. Yeah.
So that's when it came on my agenda. Yeah. And I came back from that day thinking, I've got to do this. I've got to buy a business. But I didn't know what kind of sector I wanted to be in. I was still managing director of this manufacturing company, 2 locations here in the UK, worldwide turning over around 80 million. And we had, 24-hour manufacturing, so on and so forth. Had a fantastic management team in place. But what I did is I was looking for the sector, and a phrase kept coming back to me. And I was looking for something that was recession-proof. We didn't know about the pandemic, it was too early for that. The phrase kept coming back to me that there are 2 certainties in life, which are death and taxes. I didn't know much about taxes apart from paying a load, but I did know about the death industry, the profession, because of my involvement in it. So, I was having my hair cut, whilst I've still got some, and 2 doors from the hairdressers was my old friend, the local funeral director, who I used to wash cars for, and worked with him for that year or so after uni. I said, are you around for a coffee and a chat? And I was building up to this, and I think we were talking about what does it feel like, the nerves and different things. I knew what I wanted to ask him, but it wasn't until right till the end of the conversation, I built up the courage to say these words, which were, he was 62 at the time, and I said, I know you're probably too young to retire right now, but when you do, I don't think you've got a succession plan in place. Would you give me first refusal on your business? And he turned around and said, I think I'm ready now. That was 19th of October, a couple of months after our trip to Amsterdam. And on the 6th of March 2020, we signed on the dotted line. 10 days later, Boris Johnson, our Prime Minister at the time, said, anyone that can work from home, because we're going into lockdown 1. So 10 days after acquiring the business, we went into the first lockdown. So tell us about how, are you okay, and it's okay if you're not, but are you okay sharing how much you paid, or is that Yeah, no, sensitive? I think that's okay, yeah, again, as long as we keep it in the room. Sure. So I didn't quite know why he was so ready right now to sell that business. He'd been working in this family business for 40 years. And in our profession, it's quite giving. You're often looking after people. The tagline that we say is that we're caring for people in their hour of need. And we're really proud to be a part of that and to help people through that really difficult time. So I think there's been a lot of giving. But he was also a motivated seller because he had invested in some other deals outside of the funeral profession into property, which hadn't come to fruition, and he had a director's loan in the accounts, which was stacking up, which he needed to pay back before the end of the tax year in April, 6th of April. So his motivation was to pay that loan back and then have some money coming in so that he could keep going with the lifestyle that he had become accustomed to. So the business was turning over around about, I think it was 916,000, something like that. That was the total turnover that last year's set of accounts. With funerals, you have something called prepaid funeral plans, which has been in the press for good and bad reasons just recently. But with the company that he used, they were all safe. They're now FCA regulated and safe, so they're really safe. Had about £1 million worth of prepaid plans sitting to one side. The money's not in the company's account, it's in Golden Charter's account, and they look after it and grow it, so when the plan needs to be used, it can be paid out to the funeral directors. That wasn't even mentioned. It came with vehicles, obviously the hearse and limousine, not the ones I used to wash, they had been updated, and a private ambulance as well. Premises were leased through the trust of the family. But this business had been in his family since 1777. So over 250 years old. I'm the first owner with the wrong name that's above the door. Obviously, I've kept that name because that's what I bought. So that's what we acquired. To raise funds, the deal I did, again, listening to Jonathan and working through the deal structure, how much do you need on day one? How much do you want? Everyone wants everything on day one. We don't get what we want sometimes, I tell my kids that. So he needed 360,000, pay off some of his director's loan and a bit of change. And then it was 500,000 of a deferred consideration over 5 years, paid monthly to him for two reasons. One, I didn't know any better. And two, if I'd given him all the money up front, he may have spent it a lot quicker than helping him to spread it over 5 years. With the deferred consideration, it was a 5-year, 60 payments of 500,000. That's come down by 7 months. I've taken off the back end of that. So we've actually got 18 months to go now. Because of things that, I don't like to say skeletons in the closet, but things that have come out of the woodwork for different reasons, and we've been able to reduce that down. So
if I could just say that a different way, just to make sure that I know what you're saying, I just want to make sure everyone is very clear. So one of the benefits of deferring part of the consideration is that it can be adjusted. It can be set off against any what would have been warranty claims under different circumstances.
Yes,
so therefore, you never overpay for the business because you can adjust those future payments accordingly, and you adjusted by the equivalent of 7 months of payments. Yeah.
60-odd thousand pounds.
Okay, so you reduced the overall consideration by 60,000.
Yeah.
Got it.
And all of that was done with just talking to him. This has come up. What do we do? Oh, can you take it off the end of my deferred consideration? Yeah. That 5 years seems a long way away for people.
Yeah. So it's an easier thing to agree to, isn't it, when it's 5 years hence?
That's right. So that's what we did. The money I raised was through a friends and family round, which I don't know that we've spoken about.
We haven't. This is the first time today.
On this stage here. Because it was the first deal. I was still, by the way, managing director of this manufacturing company over here, and that was doing very well even during COVID and looking after everything that was going on there. No one in any of my companies had ever been furloughed throughout the whole COVID period, manufacturing or funerals or anything like that. So that was still on the go as well. But I had still has a fantastic management team, senior leadership team in that business as well. So I didn't tell any of them what I was doing. This was my side gig that I started off.
The point here I think I can make is that if you have a full-time occupation and you are a full-time managing director, you can still buy a business evenings and weekends. It is not a full-time job buying one business. At one point I had 7 various stages of diligence, And even that wasn't full. That wasn't full time. Yeah, that was. It was like, what do I have to do today? Oh, not very much.
Yeah.
So you can buy one business evenings and weekends.
Easily, very much so. I sometimes liken it to a wedding. If anyone's got married, that at the beginning it's all exciting. You're sending out dates, you're reserving venues and DJs and that sort of thing. It's a big gap in the middle where you can't do too much apart from try and lose some weight and look as good as you can for the photos. And then those last few weeks before, and it's very similar to that. Another person described it to me, and this is maybe a good analogy or not, it's a bit like a duck taking off from a lake and then landing back on the lake as well. It's all a bit flappy and everything else right at the beginning and right at the end. But the middle bit's actually quite calm. You're just going back and forth between different points. And that's where relationship comes in with the seller. That's really key, really important.
So with that first acquisition then, how much of your own personal money did you put in?
I can't look you in the eye. I was desperately trying not to put any of my money in because Jonathan's saying, don't put any of your money in, don't put any of your money in. So I was desperate. And it literally got to the 11th hour. And my solicitors, and I can't quite remember the details, nearly 3 years ago now, but it was something like a stamp duty or a something. And again, I can't remember the exact amount, definitely under 10,000. I think it was 6, it might have been £9,000 that they needed to get this across the line.
Look, we'll let you off. We'll let you off on this
Thank you.
occasion. Because putting 10,000 of your own money in to buy a business doing nearly $1 million of revenue of that sort of size,
Yeah.
I think I think that's acceptable.
And I got the money back 2 days later when I got charge of the bank account.
Well, in which case, very, very acceptable.
So no money down, friends and family, proper agreement with friends and family, proper contract, proper interest rate, wasn't interest free by any means. I think it's today, actually, it's still the highest amount of interest rate I've paid on a loan.
What was it?
So I think it was around 14% at the end of the day, so really high. Okay. And what I've done now in the short space of time is actually be able to refinance.
Good.
And they're gone now, so no friends and family are involved in the financing of any businesses. But it got us over the line. And you kind of have to do anything you have to do to get it over the line so that you've got that credibility as well that I've done a deal. And not only have I done a deal, but then this is what I've done since with it. In the financing and the numbers, the premises, the team that we've built and inherited and grown and everything else as well. So after that first year, in the first year, we went over $1 million in turnover because I brought some of my knowledge from manufacturing business background in terms of marketing and some IT stuff and different things. Didn't change a lot from the outside perception. I didn't want that to change too much, but made the back end systems work and everything else like that. So that's what I started, how I started.
Sorry for interrupting your video, but I wanted to introduce you to a great lawyer in the UK who can get your deals done for you. He's worked for 50 of my mastermind clients in the last few months alone. His name is John Andrews, and I've got his details right here in my little black book of contacts. You can phone him on 0345 241 2494, or you can email him on johnandrews.deallawyer@jmw.co.uk. If you want someone who can get a deal done, he is your guy. So let's get back to the video.
And there was a second acquisition?
It's a bit of a unicorn, this one. If it comes up tomorrow, I'm buying the same thing again. But this one, so after I'd got my feet under the door and worked out what was working and what wasn't working, I then was looking for ways to introduce myself to other funeral directors and find out what's happening with them, what's their sort of succession and everything else like that. I had a personal relationship with the first one, which was one of the direct way of going to business. Within our profession, there's lots of big corporates. So there's 3 main ones: Funeral Partners, Dignity and Co-op. Co-op being the biggest. Most people have heard of those. Dignity people may or may not have heard of because they keep the company name, a bit like what I'm doing, and they might put a little logo up next to it. Interestingly, just last week, Dignity as a whole, they've got 795 funeral homes and 48 crematoriums, has gone up for sale for £260 million. So not too bad. And they're,
And you do know that the buyer will then aggressively start buying others because they need to reach their goal so that they can exit again and sell that 285 for for 500 million or whatever.
Yeah. So as part of my journey into further acquisitions, I got in one of the cars that I used to clean. I still clean from time to time, but anyway, one of the limousines, and would offer my services, our company's services, as a limousine driver to other funeral directors. When you have a family that want multiple limousines, they often ring around and see who can help them. So I was just a limousine driver. I wasn't a business owner, anything like that. I would come in, do a good job, and find out everything I needed to know about that company. Long story cut short, a few months later, one of those companies that I'd done a drive for, and I hadn't done that many, just a couple really, contacted me to say, do you own that company that you did the drive for? Why did you ask that? We might be looking to sell and wonder whether you would like to buy us as well. Let's have a chat. So I went down and had a chat with them. Interestingly, the guy I was speaking to was the son-in-law of the owners and his wife. They were 62 years old, same age as the previous owner. So I wrote that down when I was talking, when Alison was talking. That's maybe a bit of a sweet spot of an age I need to look for in our profession. The owners were 88 and 89 years old, bless them. Wonderful people. John and June. I was invited after the acquisition a few months later to their 70th wedding anniversary, which was wonderful. Not many people can get to that long.
And that actually is credit to the relationship that you built up with them, that the buyer of their business would be invited to something important like that.
Yeah, it's very special, and he's in hospital at the moment, which I'm really sad about, and I don't know that he's got too many more days left, bless him. But what I have been able to do is build that relationship with them. Interestingly, they'd had one of these corporate businesses go in to their business and talk to them, and they just did not click with them. They did not get on with them at all. I can't wait to find this guy one day, the salesman for their M&A team, and thank him, because when certain people left the room, he said to the people that were remaining, which I think was the daughter and the son-in-law, the younger of the two, just to let you know, this will probably get a bit messy. Thank you. So that put them off, continuing the conversations with them, which opened the door wide for me. Went down and spoke with them. A little bit hostile at first. It's been in his family for many years, not as many as the first one, but he's been his father and then him and then passing it on. And he was holding out for a family member to take it over. And again, in our profession, it's not one of the most attractive ones. There's not many jobs with the title digital something in them and that sort of thing. It's not many things that young kids want to do growing into it. So I kind of became adopted into their family as part of this process, which I'm really, really pleased about. Numbers on that one?
If you can share them.
So it was turning over just over $1 million. And he wanted 1.5 for the business, everything. That came with 2 commercial properties, 1 big commercial property and 1 smaller office, but like a house commercial property, worth commercially $1 million, but residentially, I don't know how much more. It came with 2 beautiful new cars, a private ambulance and another private car, which we inherited. There was a director's loan. He'd paid his brother off years earlier and taken out a loan, and it'd been just left there. So it was a director's loan of £121,000 in the accounts, which needed to be accounted for on day of completion. And I've spoken to you some about this, so sorry to repeat myself, but it's the story of how I saved £121,000 in about 10 seconds. So it might be, I don't know, do you want to hear that or not? Some nods going on.
I think it might be vaguely interesting to a couple of people.
And this is the thing, this is the fun, this is the excitement about doing deals and acquiring businesses, is that you'll get questions that you've never had before, and it's how you deal with those. So an email comes through from their accountant saying, we've kind of negotiated, we've done the deal, it's there, you know, and we're just doing the DD due diligence and everything else like that. But the figures have been agreed a while ago. And the accountant comes back to me and says, would you be willing to pay another $121,000 on top of this for the business on top of what we'd already agreed. So it'd be then 1.6 to 1 million. So I was like, what do I do? I'd agreed finances or was working out that and everything else. I didn't want to put 121,000 of my own money in, otherwise Alison would have told me off. So I was thinking, what do I do? And I was sort of pacing a little bit, like almost like I don't want this deal to go through because it's so good, but I also don't know where I'm going to find this, quite a big chunk of change. I'll phone him. I'll phone the accountant and speak to him. Hi there, it's James. Got your email. Oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. What do you think? I said, look, I don't know where, we've already agreed the deal. I don't know how I'm going to be able to raise this extra money. I said, is this a deal breaker? He said, oh, no, it's not a deal breaker. Well, in that case, then, unfortunately, the owners are going to have to settle that on day of completion. So 10 seconds, saved myself £121,000, whereas again, if you can get too excited and too involved and only have one deal on the table...
Yeah, if you're in control of the deal, you write the terms. If you let the other side get control, you feel like you're the puppet on the string and they're pulling the strings, and that's the uncomfortable feeling. So you just pushed back and said, is this a deal breaker? They said no, and you went, okay, in that case, they'll have to do it. I'm not putting that money in.
Yeah.
Easy as that.
Yep. So on day of completion, again, don't worry about this stuff. It just happens in the background. £1 million went in through financing into my solicitor's bank account, went to theirs. This 121,000 came back into the business, and so on and so forth. It all just got dealt with, but I didn't have to pay it. So properties, long-term, very good business, reputation, vehicles, some prepaid plans as well, not £1 million, but probably 300,000 odd pounds. And then I did £1 million on day one minus all of those things, and then 500,000 over 5 years on a deferred consideration.
It's interesting you've done 2 with 5 years, because sometimes people tell me, I've tried this by myself and I couldn't get anyone to say, no one would ever accept deferred terms. Yeah. So what do you think the key is to getting people to accept deferred terms?
It's making them feel happy with the overall process and with that agreement. I originally went back, he wanted 1.5, I went back with 750 on day one and 750 over 5 years. No, that wasn't going to work for him. So this figure of £1 million is there for lots of people in their head for whatever reason. So he's 88, 89 years old. He unfortunately won't be able to enjoy that, which is also a really good lesson for everyone to hear. The other one is I see every day how short life is. So please don't waste it. Do what you want to do as quickly as you can do it so that you can be working, wherever you want in the world, checking in on your numbers for your KPIs and things like that, like Danny does, and different things, and enjoying your life, because it really, really is too short. So it was a talk. Interestingly, with him, he was and still is, he's still got all his marbles, he's a wonderful guy. He was like, well, that money's not guaranteed, that deferred consideration. I said, well, no. There's some guarantees in the SPA, the legal agreement we're signing up. So if I don't pay you, then, certain things kick in. He said, yeah, what happens if you die? And when you're in the profession, we kind of quite talk openly about our own mortality because we're faced with it every day. And I thought it's a good question. His accountant, I think, solicitor came up with the idea of take out a life insurance policy for me for £500,000, diminishing over 5 years because I'm paying monthly for that, and it's either 16 or 19. I've got a problem with 9s and 6s, but anyway, 16 or 19 pounds a month. The business pays for it, so if I do pass away, then they get all of their money.
I've got to say that is an absolutely cracking way to deal with that question of, well, what happens if something happens to you? I won't get my money. Or you can take out a very inexpensive policy to cover that. Yeah. So it's a beautiful idea. Very, very, very good indeed. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, James Gardner, thank you.